Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Global Intelligence Weekly Wrap-Up for the week ending July 5th, 2024. I'm Neil Bisson, a retired intelligence officer with the Canadian Security Intelligence Service and the director of Global Intelligence Knowledge Network. I'm excited to be your host for this week's edition of Global Intelligence Weekly Wrap-Up. Each week, we delve into the latest headlines, offering expert insights on national security, foreign interference, espionage, terrorism, and everything spy-related. Before we jump into today's stories, I'd like to emphasize the vital role you play in supporting and sustaining this podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the Global Intelligence Weekly Wrap-Up on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or simply ask your smart speaker to play it. If you enjoy the content, please leave a comment, give us a rating, and share it with others. Your feedback and support are crucial in helping us continue to provide high-quality, insightful content. You can also support the show by becoming a supporter at buzzsprout.com/233-6717/support. Your contributions are greatly appreciated and help ensure that we can continue bringing you these important insights. Thank you for your support. Now let's dive into this week's episode of Global Intelligence Weekly Wrap-Up. In our first story, we're discussing a recent article from Global News titled, "5 More Alleged Senior Members of the Iranian Regime Face Deportation from Canada." This article reveals that Canadian immigration officials have launched deportation proceedings against 5 more suspected members of the Iranian regime found in Canada. These individuals allegedly held senior positions in Iran's repressive government. The Canada Border Service Agency, CBSA, has asked the Immigration and Refugee Board, IRB, to hold hearings for these 5 individuals. The deportation process comes under sanctions adopted in 2022, which banned top Iranian officials, including Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC members, from entering Canada. These sanctions were a response to the brutal suppression of protesters following the arrest and death of Mahsa Amini, who was detained for allegedly showing her hair in public. 2 previously publicized cases involved Majid Aran-Manesh, a science advisor, and Saeed Salman Samani, former deputy interior minister. However, the hearings for the current 5 suspects are being conducted behind closed doors, and their identities are not being disclosed. This secrecy contrasts with the general practice of holding deportation hearings in public unless the individual has made a refugee claim. Canada's relationship with Iran has been fraught with tension, especially since diplomatic ties were severed in 2012. The downing of a passenger plane by the IRGC in 2020, killing 55 Canadian citizens and 30 permanent residents, further strained relations. Additionally, the IRGC's support of terrorist groups like Hamas, which was involved in the October 7th attack that killed 1,200 Israelis, and supply of drones to Russia for use in Ukraine, have cemented its designation as a terrorist entity by Canada. In November of 2022, Canada designated Iran as a regime that has engaged in terrorism and systematically engrossed human rights violations. Holding senior posts in the Islamic Republic thus became grounds for inadmissibility to Canada. As of June 19th, the IRGC was officially placed on Canada's list of terrorist entities. From my previous experience as an intelligence officer with CSIS, I can speculate that the reasons for the closed-door hearings involving the other individuals under potential deportation relates to the information and how that information was collected, which identifies their association to the Iranian regime. Most likely, this information is highly classified, and if discussed in open court, could result in the identification of protective sources, techniques, and other methods used by Canada's intelligence community. This is an important aspect of the Canadian legal system as it allows Canada to continue to keep national security threats from accessing Canada while simultaneously providing necessary protections to sources and techniques used to identify these threats. In summary, the ongoing deportation proceedings against senior Iranian regime members highlight Canada's firm stance against foreign interference and human rights violation. Looking ahead, we can expect continued scrutiny of individuals with ties to repressive regimes as Canada seeks to uphold its commitments to human rights and national security. So what are your thoughts on Canada's stance against human rights violations? Do you think this move will have a significant impact on our national security? In our next story, we'll be discussing a recent and alarming incident outside the Israeli embassy in Belgrade, Serbia. This incident, described as a targeted terrorist act by Serbian authorities, involved a crossbow attack on a police officer. On June 29th, a Serbian police officer was shot in the neck with a crossbow by an assailant outside the Israeli embassy. The attacker, identified as a convert to Islam, was subsequently shot and killed by the officer. I guess the adage of don't bring a crossbow to a gunfight applies here. This attack underscores the diverse methodologies employed by terrorists utilizing unconventional weapons to bypass security measures. The incident raises significant concerns about the security of diplomatic missions worldwide and the persistent threat posed by lone attackers. The attacker was from an area identified as a center for Serbia's Bosniak Muslim minority. Authorities are investigating potential links to known extremist and terrorist groups. This event is part of a broader trend of attacks on Israeli interests globally, reflecting ongoing geopolitical tensions and conflicts. Serbian Interior Minister Ivica Dačić highlighted the extensive security measures taken following the attack, including searches and interrogations of numerous individuals. Israel's Foreign Minister, Israel Katz, commended the Serbian authorities for their swift and robust response, emphasizing the global stance against terrorism. This incident is a stark reminder of the ever-evolving nature of terrorist threats and the importance of vigilance and preparedness. Moving forward, we can expect increased security measures around diplomatic missions and a heightened focus on identifying and neutralizing lone attackers. We now turn our attention to the Ukraine, where we dive into an intriguing story from the Kiev Post entitled, Russian Spy in Wigs, Ukraine Arrests 3 FSB Agents in Odessa. This article covers the recent arrest of 3 Russian FSB agents in Ukraine, one of whom used wigs in an attempt to avoid detection. Let's break down the main events covered in this article. The Security Service for Ukraine, or the SBU, announced that they had neutralized a group of agents employed by Russia's Federal Security Service, the FSB, in Odessa. One of the agents, a female, attempted to evade detection by frequently changing wigs. These suspects were tasked with scouting out Ukrainian air defense systems and installing hidden cameras around the Odessa seaport. They moved around in taxis to photograph and mark locations on Google Maps. 2 of the suspects were caught photographing a military installation, while the female suspect was arrested in her apartment after conducting reconnaissance on a nearby location. To understand the significance of this event, we need to consider the broader context of Russian intelligence operations. The use of disguises and wigs is a classic tradecraft technique, often depicted in spy films and TV shows. However, as we've seen in real-life cases, like when the Mossad operation in Dubai was targeting the Hamas military wing co-founder Mohab al-Mabhouh, such techniques can sometimes backfire, drawing more attention rather than deflecting it. The arrest of these agents highlights the ongoing intelligence war between Ukraine and Russia. Since the annexation of Crimea in 2014 and the subsequent conflict in eastern Ukraine, both countries have been deeply engaged in espionage activities against each other. This incident is just the latest in a series of intelligence operations that have come to light. As with any intelligence operation, this one being focused on reconnaissance, there are several key components that can be compromised and blow the operation. In the article, it mentions specifically that the FSB agents were using cell phones specifically for communications in relation to the operation, as well as using public transportation and travel to and from the reconnaissance area. Based on my professional experience in Tradecraft, the use of mobile phones, specifically for communication with handlers and other agents, is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it separates operational communications from day-to-day activities, reducing the risk of inadvertent exposure. On the other hand, if one phone is compromised, it can lead to the exposure of the entire network through forensic examination of calls and texts. Using public transportation for operational activities also has its pros and cons. It allows operatives to focus on potential surveillance, but also increases the risk of being identified by taxi drivers or other passengers. The ability to use disguises such as wigs is often portrayed in spy films and TV programs like The Americans. In reality, the use of such techniques, if not done properly, can actually lead to more scrutiny being put on the suspects. No one ever said espionage was easy. In summary, the arrest of these FSB agents in Odessa underscores the high-stakes nature of intelligence work and the constant cat-and-mouse game between rival agencies. The use of wigs and dedicated mobile phones illustrates the lengths to which operatives will go to avoid detection, though these methods are not foolproof. Looking ahead, we can expect both Ukraine and Russia to continue their intense intelligence activity, with each side seeking to gain the upper hand. If you want to know more about the history and operations of the Russian FSB, go to the dossier page of Global Intelligence Knowledge Network, where you can find files on some of the world's most famous and infamous intelligence agencies. From the Ukraine to Cuba, espionage continues. In this next story, we discuss a recent article from The Guardian titled, New Cuban Radar Site Near U.S. Military Base Could Aid China in Spying. This article reveals satellite images showing that Cuba is building a new radar site potentially capable of spying on the U.S.'s nearby Guantanamo Bay naval base. Let's break down the details and the implications of this development. According to The Guardian, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS, not the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, published a report stating that the new radar site has been under construction since 2021 near Santiago de Cuba. The site, once operational, could provide significant surveillance capabilities, allowing for the monitoring of air and maritime activities of the U.S. military at Guantanamo Bay. The radar facility, described as a circularly disposed antenna array, could track signals up to 8,000 nautical miles away, making it a powerful tool for intelligence collection. The radar facility, described as a circularly disposed antenna array, could track signals up to 8,000 nautical miles away, making it a powerful tool for intelligence collection. The proximity of Cuba to the U.S. makes it an ideal location for China, Washington's top strategic rival, to collect signals intelligence. This development is not isolated. It's part of a broader trend where China has been enhancing its intelligence collection capabilities, particularly in regions of strategic interest. Last year, the Biden administration noted that Beijing has been spying from Cuba for years and has begun upgrading its intelligence capabilities there since 2019. These allegations, of course, have been denied by both Beijing and Havana. Historically, such radar arrays were heavily used during the Cold War, but most have been decommissioned in favor of more advanced technology. However, China appears to be reviving this approach, as evidenced by similar developments in the South China Sea. The Cuban Vice Foreign Minister Carlos Fernandez de Ocasio has denied any Chinese military interests on the island, labeling the reports as intimidation tactics by the Wall Street Journal. Despite these denials, the strategic implications are significant. Vedant Patel, a State Department spokesperson, mentioned that the U.S. is closely monitoring Chinese presence in Cuba, affirming that the U.S. will continue working to disrupt these efforts. From an intelligence perspective, the establishment of such a site would provide China with strategic vantage point, allowing them to monitor and collect data on military practices, including exercises, missile tests, and space launches from facilities like Cape Canaveral and NASA's Kennedy Space Center. From an intelligence perspective, Cuba's continued alliances with Russia and China indicates an increase in potential concern over how Canada and other Western nations will continue to deal with this popular Canadian tourist destination. The Cuban economy relies heavily on tourism. However, with a lack of travel since the pandemic, the Cuban government is likely looking to politically communist-minded countries like Russia and China to help subsidize them, likely in exchange for allowing China to install and maintain spy radar stations close to American military waterways. This will be a major consideration going forward for Canada, as we have already identified China and Russia as major enemy states involved in foreign interference against Canada. We travel to England for our next story, for a recent article from BBC News titled "Hospital Bomber Guilty of Terror Charge." This article details the conviction of Mohammed Farouk, who plotted to bomb a hospital in Leeds and an RAF base. Let's delve into the details and implications of this case. Mohammed Farouk, 28, was found guilty of preparing acts of terrorism after targeting St. James Hospital in January of 2023. His plan was to, and I quote, "kill as many nurses as possible" by detonating a pressure cooker bomb. Fortunately, Farouk was stopped by a vigilant member of the public. Farouk was employed at the St. James Hospital as a nursing assistant and initially targeted the RAF Menwith Hill, a spy base near Harrogate. When the plan seemed unfeasible, he switched his focus to a softer target of the hospital. He was arrested outside the hospital with a bomb designed to be twice as powerful as those used in the Boston Marathon bombing. Farouk's case highlights the ongoing threat posed by individuals who become self-radicalized through online extremist material. The court heard that Farouk had immersed himself in an extremist Islamic ideology and obtained bomb-making instructions from an Al-Qaeda magazine aimed at encouraging lone attacks. His plan involved using an imitation firearm to incite police to shoot him after detonating the bomb and killing as many people as possible with knives. The intervention of a patient, Nathan Newby, who talked him down, was crucial in preventing what could have been a devastating attack. Counterterrorism officials describe Farouk as an extremely dangerous individual motivated by a Daesh-inspired ideology and personal grievances. Detective Superintendent Paul Greenwood praised the bravery of Nathan Newby, whose actions saved many lives that night. From an intelligence perspective, this case clearly demonstrates the difficulty that intelligence agencies have in identifying and disrupting individuals who become self-radicalized. This, combined with the ease of access to bomb-making guides online from terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS, can lead to catastrophic terrorist acts being perpetrated. The intervention of an individual like Mr. Newby underscores the importance of public vigilance and the critical role of community members in thwarting terrorist activities. Being aware of your surroundings is an essential part of maintaining your safety in any situation or location. I recommend that you check out my YouTube video entitled Situational Awareness, a Spy Superpower, to improve your chances of identifying and dealing with potentially dangerous situations. I'll leave a link in the show notes. Our next story demonstrates some significant alarm bells in both the tech and intelligence communities. Our topic of discussion in this segment is based on the recent New York Times article titled, "A Hacker Stole OpenAI Secrets, Raising Fears That China Could Too." Let's get into it. Last year, a hacker managed to breach the internal messaging system of OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, and stole details about the design of their AI technologies. Although the hacker did not access the core systems where OpenAI builds its AI, the incident exposed internal discussions among researchers and employees. This breach was disclosed to OpenAI employees in April 2023 and has raised significant concerns about the security of cutting-edge AI technology. From an intelligence perspective, this breach is noteworthy not just because of the data stolen, but because of what it represents. The hacker, believed to be a private individual with no ties to any foreign governments, managed to access sensitive discussions. This raises the question, if an individual can do this, what about a state-sponsored actor? The fear is that adversaries like China could exploit similar vulnerabilities to steal advanced AI technologies, which could have serious national security implications. To provide some context, OpenAI is at the forefront of AI development. Their technologies are not only innovative, but also have the potential for dual use, meaning that they can be applied to both civilian and military contexts. The breach led to internal concerns about how well OpenAI was protecting its secrets and whether they were prepared for more sophisticated attacks, particularly from nation-states. Comparing this to similar events, we've seen how cyber espionage has become a tool for state actors. The SolarWinds attack, for example, demonstrates how deeply foreign adversaries can penetrate U.S. systems. The OpenAI incident might not be the same scale, but it serves as a wake-up call for tech industry. An OpenAI technical manager sent a memo to the board of directors highlighting the company's inadequate measures to prevent foreign adversaries from stealing its secrets. This incident reveals fractures within OpenAI about the risks posed by AI and the importance of robust security protocols. In my professional opinion, the concerns referenced in this memo are valid. The rapid advancement of AI technologies means that safeguarding intellectual property is more crucial than ever. Failure to do so could result in these technologies being used against us. On April 7th, the Prime Minister of Canada announced a $2 billion investment in AI in Canada to build and provide access to computer capabilities and technological infrastructure for Canada's world-leading AI researchers, startups, and scale-ups. Without the proper security surrounding this investment in technology, Canada will be leaving itself vulnerable to these technologies being used against us by foreign state and non-state actors looking to gain access to this dual-use technology. In summary, the hack of OpenAI is a reminder of the vulnerabilities that exist even in the most advanced tech companies. It underscores the need for stringent security measures and vigilance against potential espionage activities. As we move forward, it's crucial to monitor how companies and OpenAI respond to these threats and what steps it takes to protect their innovations. More collaboration between tech companies and government agencies needs to fend off ever-growing threats surrounding this technology. So, how concerned are you about the security of AI and other emerging technologies? Do you think that there's enough measures being taken in order to protect them? With the focus of tech companies and government agencies fresh in our minds, our next story demonstrates how a major partnership announced by AWS and the Australian government will deliver cloud innovation for national security and defense. This partnership represents a $2 billion strategic investment in creating a top-secret AWS cloud, or TS cloud, aimed at enhancing Australia's defense and intelligence capabilities. This partnership marks a pivotal moment for Australia's national security infrastructure. The TS cloud will be purpose-built to securely host sensitive information, enabling seamless data sharing between Australia's national intelligence community and the Australian Defence Force. The introduction of the advanced AI and ML capabilities through this cloud initiative will maintain and potentially expand Australia's strategic advantage. From an intelligence perspective, this move underscores the growing importance of secure, scalable, and reliable cloud infrastructure in modern defense strategies. It aligns with global trends where governments are increasingly turning to cloud technology to streaming operation, enhance security, and to foster innovation. To understand the broader implications, it's crucial to recognize AWS's long-standing presence and investment in Australia. Since 2012, AWS has invested over $9.1 billion in the local economy and plans to invest an additional $13.2 billion by 2027. This partnership builds on the foundations, promising not only enhanced security capabilities, but also significant economic benefits, including job creation in fields like cybersecurity, data analytics, and cloud computing. Comparatively, similar initiatives in other countries have demonstrated the transformative potential of such partnerships. For instance, the U.S. Department of Defense JEDI contract with Microsoft aims to bring cloud computing to the forefront of national defense operations, highlighting a global shift towards integrating advanced technologies and defense strategies. The article highlights AWS's commitment to meeting the highest security standards with the certification as a strategic hosting provider under the Australian government's Hosting Certificate Framework. This certification, coupled with continuous assessments through the Information Security Registration Assessors Program, or IRAP, ensures that the TS Cloud will meet stringent security requirements for handling Australia's most classified data. The incorporation of cloud data from a defense and intelligence organization to a public company. Public companies like Amazon can be bought and sold. They have shareholders that have a stake in the decisions being made and can be hacked just like government databases can. Additionally, anyone with previous knowledge of the company's cloud platform and vulnerabilities could use or sell this knowledge to compromise the information held within. However, the amalgamation of private industry and government agencies does allow for some significant cost saving, and since private companies often lead cutting-edge technology discoveries, this could be implemented into securing the information on the cloud and potentially keeping one step ahead of competition or the foreign state or non-state actor working against the government using the service. On the pro side of the argument for Australia, the ability to leverage AI and ML capabilities within a secure cloud environment could revolutionize data analysis and decision-making processes with Australia's intelligence community. In summary, the AWS and Australian government partnership to develop a TS Cloud is a landmark initiative that promises to elevate Australia's national security and defense capabilities. By embracing cutting-edge cloud technology, Australia is positioning itself at the forefront of digital transformation in intelligence and defense sectors. Looking ahead, we can expect this partnership to set up a precedent for future collaboration between government and private sector leaders in technology. It is possible that we could be seeing the dawn of a new merger between private corporations and government's intelligence agencies. Canada, the United States, the United Kingdom, and New Zealand will likely be watching closely to see how this develops and may look to opt into similar cloud services for their intelligence agencies. In our final story, we'll be discussing the retirement announcement of the Director of the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. On July 4th, in a post from Dominic LeBlanc, the Minister of Public Safety, announced on social media that David Vigneault would be retiring. The news was reported in a media article entitled "David Vigneault, Director of Canada's Spy Agency, to retire." Let's dive into the details. David Vigneault has announced his retirement after serving 7 years as the Director of CSIS. Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc shared the news and praised Vigneault for his dedication to protecting Canada and its national interests. During his tenure, Vigneault has dealt with several critical issues, including foreign interference and internal challenges within the agency. His leadership has been marked by his commitment to addressing the complex threats head-on. Vigneault was particularly vocal about the threat of foreign interference, emphasizing its effects not only on Canadian elections, but also on various levels of government, private business, and R&D sectors. Just last month, he addressed the House of Commons Public Safety Committee discussing allegations of parliamentarians colluding with foreign states. For context, David Vigneault became the 9th Director of CSIS in June 2017, after holding key roles at the Canadian Border Services Agency and the Privy Council Office. His career has been dedicated to national security, and his insights have often highlighted the evolving nature of threats against Canada. Vigneault's tenure has been compared to previous directors, showing a provocative approach to both external and internal challenges. In the article, Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc acknowledges Vigneault's long-standing service to Canadians. LeBlanc stated, David Vigneault has spent his entire career in the service of Canadians, keeping them and our national interests safe from those seeking to harm them. This sentiment is echoed by many within the intelligence community who have witnessed Vigneault's steadfast leadership. Vigneault's decision to create an ombudsman position within the service to address staff harassment complaints shows his commitment to improving the internal culture of the agency, a move that is crucial for maintaining the morale and effectiveness of CSIS employees and staff. However, Vigneault's timing regarding his retirement raises some questions. Primarily, why now? As an appointed position, the director is allowed to serve in this position for 2 terms consecutively for up to 10 years. This means that he is leaving the position 3 years prior to what he would have had to do to step down. One can only speculate as to why this decision has been made, as there are no explanation given in the media reporting that I could find. The service has seen unprecedented media attention the last few years, with concerns over foreign interference at the forefront. Media leaks of highly classified intelligence reports led to the now ubiquitous reporting and government publications surrounding foreign states' attempts to interfere and influence the democratic processes of Canada. The service leaks have yet to be identified, and there has been a major political fallout over decisions made by the current governing party. With the Liberal government slipping in the polls, the potential for Vigneault to acquire a favorable position within the government in the next 3 years, when he would be required to step down, is unlikely. Again, this is speculation, and reporting could come out that he simply wants to spend more time with family and enjoy his retirement. But this is a cookie-cutter answer to any retirement or resignation of a highly public figure, so the listener will have to be the judge. Regardless, Director Vigneault acted commendably as this country's top spy, and despite the service's actions and interpretations of threat-related information to the Government of Canada and foreign interference, he stood behind the men and women of the service, their mandate, and their hard work. I personally would like to wish him all the best and thank him for his hard work. But there is still an important question remaining. Who will replace the director as the lead spy in Canada? It is the Governor in Council or Governor General who appoints the director of the service. This would mean that Mary Simon could appoint another person to hold the office in Vigneault's absence for a term not exceeding 6 months. Speculation on a new director will continue until one is named, but if the current government is to follow the most recent appointment agenda, and I'm referring here to Lieutenant General Janine Kernanen being named the Chief of the Defense Staff, the role will likely be given to a highly qualified government female executive. Regardless of the sex of the new director, someone with extensive operational experience in Canada's intelligence community is what is needed to ensure that the service remains and continues to become more operationally relevant on the world stage. Picking a new director for the service should not be a politically correct decision to try to garner points with voters. It must be seen as a position that demands the best and the brightest with a proven track record regarding and understanding the national security threats that Canada faces and will continue to face. Although diversity, inclusion, and equity are always considerations within the federal government, these issues cannot and must not overshadow the need to have the most qualified candidate be appointed to do what is arguably one of the most difficult jobs in national security. So, what do you think? Who do you think should be the next director of CSIS? What qualities and experience should they bring to the role? That's it for this week's episode of Global Intelligence Weekly Wrap-Up. I encourage you to share your thoughts and insights in the comments section or on our social media channels. Your feedback and opinions are incredibly valuable and help shape the content we provide on the Weekly Intelligence Wrap-Up. If you enjoyed today's episode, there are several ways you can stay connected and support our Global Intelligence Knowledge Network. Make sure you subscribe to the Global Intelligence Weekly Wrap-Up, where you can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or just ask your smart speaker to play it. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a like, drop a comment, share your thoughts. We love hearing from you. And if you'd like to support the show financially and help us keep delivering this type of content, consider becoming a supporter at buzzsprout.com/233-6717/support. Your contributions make a significant difference and help us keep the information flowing. Thank you for joining me this week, and as always, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe. See you next time on Global Intelligence Weekly Wrap-Up.